Yeah, hello? Where voices, topics, and legendary stories come together? Yeah, I can get you connected. Switching to line one.
It's video time, kids.
This episode is brought to you by BYOB, Be Your Own Banker. I got a personal story. I was looking for a safe place to park my cash, be able to invest responsibly. Chris and his team had the answer. Visit BeYourOwnBanker.com.
Also brought to you by PMC, Private Money Club. There are only two types of people in the world, people with money and people who need money. There's only one community that solves both problems. PrivateMoneyClub.com is the only dating site for money.
Welcome to Switchboard Podcast. It's your host, Stevie Bell. Episode 8 is special. We're going to take you behind the scenes so you can see what it takes to make a company like Forum tick. We got Jared Eberhardt, Bryan Knox, Dan McNamara, and Rob Meyers. Let's check it out.
What's up? Stevie Bell here. Welcome to the Switchboard Podcast, first season, Forum Chronicles. This is a special episode. I'm really excited. I got Rob Meyers, Bryan Knox, Dan McNamara. Super excited to have you guys. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, good to be here.
This is like a cool little reunion. I'm going to be honest. I'm a little nervous because usually when I'm talking to Knox, I have to face Knox. I've either done something wrong or I'm not doing something right. Not just kidding. Sick. So let's jump into this episode. We're talking about Forum and the Burton acquisition and go from there. But I'm just going to start with you, Rob. We'll just go around in circle. But obviously, tell me your role and when you joined Forum and your position there.
Yeah, I joined in 2000. My role at the beginning was basically just with Foursquare and Special Blend, but then probably around 03-ish, Forum's apparel and soft goods and that kind of stuff started rolling. And that's my background. So I was managing and directing the apparel side of everything, and stuck through until So I had 4 years underneath Four Star, and 4 years underneath Burton with the brand, and I left in 08.
Okay, yeah. Knox, when did you join? The Forum, and what was your role?
Yeah, I came in after Burton bought Forum. I believe it was like 2006. And my role there was team marketing and working with media, working with these guys, trying to make it all happen. And I was there, well, obviously until 2015, but that was Burton killed the brands, I guess. I can't remember what year that was. But yeah, I was there for a while.
Dan, what year did you join the program and your role?
So I started way pre-program. I started working for Forum Blend Foursquare in 97 as a sales rep on the East Coast. And then in 1999, they started Circa. And so I added that to the stable of brands. And then after that, around 2001, Jared first and then Raul approached me to come in and be the marketing director for Forum. So then I moved from Vermont to California and was the marketing director from 01 to when Burton acquired us. And then I stayed in a marketing role under Burton for a while, and then went back into a sales director role after that, managing all of the regional reps and all the international distributors and all of that side of the business. From 05 until, I think that was the acquisition, I think was 05 up until I left in 2008 from there. So that was, it was still under Burton at that time. And then, I think the brands ended at, I want to say I think it was like 2015 or something. I could still remember where I was when I heard it, like it's a major event.
Yeah, I remember because I think that the last year that I was on Forum was 2000. What year did Vacation come out? Was that 2011? Because that was my last. Yeah, I think that was my last video part. So I want to say 2012 was the last time I was on the team. And then I remember, I think everybody was working on a video, and then all of a sudden I just hear that Burton, killed the brands. And I just remember being like, almost like this like weird gut wrenching feeling. Like, there's no way. Like, how does such a iconic brand just get killed? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a feeling like, I mean, it's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's almost like someone that you loved, you lost because you just figured it was always going to be there. Like I was always, even after I left, I was always rooting for the brands and do now. So it was definitely like the weirdest feeling like ever. I just kind of took a minute and was like, wow, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't.
I'll never forget that day. Actually, I get a call from Jake, and usually when he called, there was something was going on or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, you got a half an hour?" I'm like, "Yeah." It was a Saturday, and he's like, "Hey, this is where it's at." Kind of went through everything, and he's like, "I just wanted to let you know." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, I said, "Hey, I get the apparel brands. There's a lot of things going on, and I get that you're gonna do that, but I don't agree with Forum." I said, "It's such a different brand than Burton. What you have in there." I said, it brings so much to the table for Burton, and not that my say meant anything, but I was like, I wouldn't do that. But obviously that happened, and yeah, I think it's a shame that it happened.
Yeah.
But business is business, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, you look like you're ready to say something. You
Yeah,
want to jump in there?
I was curious because like Dan and I never heard the anything about what the reasons were. We assumed sales had dropped, and you know their Burton's amazing with numbers. Like if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So um, what was Jake's? I'd love to know what that conversation was like.
Yeah, it was pretty high level. I mean, I really didn't have much say when it came to the business side of it, just more from the marketing and athletes and that. He really just said that it was at that time sales just kept moving down,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they were just trying to restructure from all different sides of the business.
Yeah.
And I believe Gravis went away around that same time. So
Uh,
it was a bigger, I think it was a big picture from the state of Burton Corporation.
Yeah.
I want to say that's when Analog went away too, from a streetwear side, which I completely disagreed with too. Those were the two I was like, I think you're crazy, man. Like,
yeah.
I'll say this today. I said it then. Like, Burton isn't a streetwear apparel brand. You're crazy to try to do that. But I'm just a guy from Southern California that sees things. So they saw it differently, and that's when it all happened, I believe.
I always thought too, because I never really heard the explanation, but I always thought that the reason they probably got rid of Forum was, well, obviously, economic reasons and budgets and stuff. But I felt like because of the competition of like what we had going on over at Forum with the team, the dynamics, the movies coming out, and then what Burton was trying to do, it almost just seemed like a split road. And my assumption was they were just tired of like Forum, because even though they were making money off, I assume they were making money off Forum, but I felt like they just kind of wanted to get rid of the competition so people would just focus on Burton. So that was just my assumption, because you never got an explanation. So yeah, that's just what I was thinking. So it's kind of cool to hear actually what really took place with that conversation between you and Jake Knox.
Yeah, I mean, he at the end of the day, he did he did care about athletes, and he did care about brands and things, and I think it probably came from more of a financial reason with like I said, all of Burton and all the different brands, more than just a target on the, I'll call it still the program brands.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay,
it was kind
yeah,
of a tear the band-aid off moment for Burton at that point because the industry had kind of been taking a beating for fair amount of years. Like 10 and 11 were kind of high watermark years, snow-wise and business-wise. And then when things started to kind of soften up after that and the tides kind of shifted, I think away from, snowboard retailers' walls being 90% Burton. And I think it was probably like, hey, let's refocus on kind of what got us here. And, you know, I definitely kind of applaud them for being able to make those decisions, because some companies just never do. But it's definitely a difficult one for sure, like without a doubt.
Absolutely. I want to just circle back and get to. I know Knox, you came around 2006, which is the same year that I got on, and I never knew Forum before Burton because every one of my paychecks said Burton. My board bag said Burton, just with the Forum logo and
Yeah.
graphics. So I didn't know anything. I literally didn't know anything about four-star distribution. But since Dan and Rob, you guys were there, I would like to touch a little bit about like what was Forum like at like four-star with Raul and Ruff and Ricky, and like, I would like to get into kind of like what the brand was like from you guys' perspective back then. Whoever wants to go
How
first.
how long is this
Go ahead.
podcast?
Well, usually like we shoot for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I
No.
think anything over than that, you kind of just become mush brain and we start to go in circles. But yeah, since Dan, tell me like a little bit about your experience, as at Four Star, because I know real quick I had Raul on a couple of weeks ago and I asked him and Travis Wood, and it's funny because they're two different perspectives, but I asked Raul like kind of at the end, I was like, what was your budget, Raw? And he goes, I don't believe in budgets. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, no, I see why. I see. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Dan.
yeah.
Like, what was it like being like under Four Star before Burton?
So I came at it from kind of a unique position, because when I worked, when I was a rep on the East Coast, I worked for all the brands, and Forum Blend, Foursquare, Circa, Volcom, Electric. Like my rep agency was pretty dynamic on the amount of brands. So I had crossed paths with the Forum guys a couple times, and through some mutual friends, got in contact with them and ended up getting the sales rep job. So, the first time I came out, I was used to, a company like Volcom where it's, a pretty tiny office, like they're kind of bootstrapping it. And I was like, well, Forum's, kind of a young upstart company. It's probably very similar. And then the first time I go up to the office, it's in the old Arnett building, and it's just designed, like something out of Wallpaper magazine. Like Rawl's office is like beautiful, like Marcus's office is like insane. And I was just like, all right, well, this is a different vibe for sure. And then, fast forward through the rep years, like when I came in 2001, I was, 28, taking over the marketing duties for all of those brands, and, working with Ruff and working with Raul, like on a day-to-day basis. And, the one story I will say that I will never forget is Raul's like, oh, come over to my house. We're having a meeting, super important. I'm like, all right. So I drive down from the office. I got my little notebook and I walk out on the patio. It looked like something crazy had gone on like the day before. I like look at the bottom of the pool, and there's like a pair of panties at the bottom of the pool. And I'm just like, all right, well, this is a different business than I'm used to. So, because I'd gotten, kind of a vision into the Burton side of things from I don't know if I mentioned, but my wife had worked there, while I lived in Vermont. So yeah, it was just a totally different vibe, and kind of the way that, action sports companies at the time were born. That was the DNA. Like it was run by a bunch of, people that weren't far off being teenagers or out of college or college age. And that's pretty much how it was run. And, it was, that created its challenges and it created its benefits, but yeah, it created a lot of fun too.
That's right. Was it kind of seemed like it was like ran like fly by the seat type of brand. Like, Raul was amazing to talk to, but it kind of seems like his style of doing business is just kind of like action first and then ask questions later. Was it kind of like that? Like just fuck,
Yeah.
if you want to jump in, just fucking let's roll. Like that's kind of how it seems like he liked to run the company. So
Yeah. I mean, it was, to Dan's point, it was part of the superpowers. Like it was as authentic to snowboarding as you could get. And there were other brands that tried to replicate it. Oh, we'll put a team together, we'll do this, but they weren't, it wasn't the same recipe. They weren't working with the same ingredients. And, I mean, yeah, the stories of whose girlfriend was coming to the office to get mad at, or boyfriend, like just some wild stuff took place. But budgets to that point, I mean, another guy that was pretty instrumental in the brands early on was a guy named Omar, and he and I would do every year, at least for a couple years, we would do round the world research. design research trips. We'd go for like 3 weeks and go from New York to London to Hong Kong to Tokyo, whatever. And I would just put everything on the credit card, and a couple weeks later, you got a check, and you just kept going.
It was super fun until we didn't get the check.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
At one point, I do remember saying, like, you know, I had put like most of the, you know, video gangs budget like on my personal cards and everything, just like, hey, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done. And then it eventually came down to the point at one day where I was just like, hey, either I get this money or I'm not coming into work tomorrow. Like, it's just like, that's it. And it was just it was a really, you know, it went from like really great times to really tumultuous times. And I think I was one of the only people that I would say was like there in the morning when all the like not fun business stuff was going on, and then until the evening when all the like marketing and team stuff was going on. So seeing like the two dynamics, you can kind of see like if those two things aren't lined up, it's just going to be a recipe for chaos. But it was fun until that point happened. That's for sure.
And from you know, an outsider perspective, looking in, I mean, from the trends that you guys were doing, you know, from outerwear, boards, graphics to the team, you know, and then even just from some technology stuff, like it was for such a small group of people and brands, you were knocking it out of the park. Like, I think that's, without really knowing, I think that's one of the reasons Burton wanted to buy the brands. They're like, holy shit. Like, you know, from Special Blend to Foursquare, you know, all the different riders that were there, you know, and I'll say like Peter had a vision working with you guys. You know, I did work with Peter and I saw, you know, how he is. And it was just really a special time in snowboarding and the elevation of the sport. And like I said, like Rob going on those, you know, research trips and to trends. It was incredible. And it's something to look back on that in that space that I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but it's cool to see.
Knox, were you at Vans before Forum, like during this time, like the early days, like, you know, with like when Dan and Robert there, you were at, if I'm right, Vans, right?
Yeah, I started in Vans maybe 2000. I can't really remember, but yeah, I was a kind of a regional rider growing up, and I was like, I'm not really good at snowboarding, and let's try to do something within the space. And I remember I was at Vans and I saw Steve Van Doren, and he's like, what are you going to do this summer? And I'm like, I'm going to head back east and just work with my dad and do some stuff. And he's like, why don't you work here? And that's kind of where it started. So it's just kind of a luck deal. But yeah, I was at Vans until 2005, or from 2005 or 6, something like that.
What was it like working for a Vans, a iconic Vans or brand like Vans, and then coming over and working with, like, going to Forum, or the program, we'll call it, because it wasn't just Forum, especially in Foursquare and all that. But like, what was that like? Is it a completely different animal than when you were at Vans?
It was, yeah, I mean, it was completely different. Obviously, Vans at the time was heavily in, you know, skate, surf, snow, I was more focused just on snow. Some great riders there, you know, Jamie Lynn, Daniel Frank, some icons, and it was cool to, you know, work with them. Obviously, when I transitioned over to the program, it was just, you know, head to toe. So there was Forum, Special Blend, Foursquare, incredible, you know, marketing, really, and the athletes. I felt, you know, I think it was just a different deal. I would say it was Vans snowboarding was a small piece of the pie, and then when you go to a brand like the program and all the brands there, it is the pie. So it was like kind of everything. So I would say that was the major difference.
This episode is brought to you by BYOB, Be Your Own Banker. Visit BeYourOwnBanker.com.
Also brought to you by PMC, Private Money Club. There are only two types of people in the world: people with money and people who need money. There's only one community that solves both problems. PrivateMoneyClub.com is the only dating site for money. That's rad, because I'm glad that you put your input in about like looking at the program, or excuse me, like, well, Forum Special, but Foursquare, before you were there working at another brand, because I feel like I didn't really start snowboarding till later, and like my very first video was True Life. And then I happened to get into snowboarding, and then I was like, all I knew was Forum and Special Blend. That was the only brands I knew. That's all I ever cared about. That's the only thing. I was working at a skate shop, and people would come in, and the only thing I'd point into was Forum and Special Blend. And then it was just wild when I got the opportunity to ride for the brand. It was just like it was absurd. I remember I was actually tagging clothes at the skate shop, and then seeing my name on it. And I just kind of look at the owner. He's one of my best friends, Kenny, and I was just like, I think I'm quitting. He's like, he was like, yeah, you should probably just get out of here. And then then we started filming for that. So it was kind of a rad experience. But jumping back to like, the early days, Dan and Rob, like, as because you guys dealt with, the Form 8, which is probably one of the most iconic teams in the world. But what was that like dealing with those guys from a product perspective, like their input? Because I know that there was issues with some of the earlier products, like with, you guys know better than I do, but like bases falling off and having problems with boots and all that. But what were some of the problems you guys faced, and how did you guys kind of overcome that working with the team?
From the rep perspective, so before I came in, I remember there were definitely issues where the JP boots, which we sold a ton of, like a lot of them wouldn't fit into most bindings when they shipped, which was a little bit of an issue. But what's crazy about the brand, like the demand and everything at that point, like, people seemed to make it work, and like Four Star definitely wasn't, super strong on the warranty side or anything. But I will say, like, if something was wrong, it seemed to get addressed, because obviously if JP Walker's name is on a boot, like, it has to be the best it can possibly be. And I will say Raul always put it kind of like paramount, like, listen to the riders. If that's what they want, if they need this, or if they need anything, like, that's what they get. And that really was, pretty true from the top down. But I think from a quality perspective in the early days, like, there definitely was, like, things were moving so fast that there were definitely some issues on that. Like, the first run of boards that were made at, it was a small factory called Rocket Science at the time. Those, I have one in the garage, like, all fell apart. Like, they literally just, the bases weren't like UV protected. Like, they just turned yellow. I'm sorry, the top sheets weren't UV protected. They just turned yellow. The bases dried out, and like, you could never get them, permeated with wax again. So there was just like these weird things there that, as a rep at the time, there were so many people that were like, oh, that brand's not going to make it, this and that and the other thing, trying to hate on it. But then we had the best sell through, like, we had the best, following, like, on the hill, like, it just started to get bigger and bigger. So we knew we had to address those things, but I don't think many companies could make it through some of the quality issues that Four Star had and get away with it. I will say, like, on the Blend and Foursquare side, it never seemed like an issue on the quality side as much. I think everything was pretty dialed on that side, but yeah, it's definitely was a kind of a wild time.
Outerwear is way easier. Hard goods, that's it's like night and day.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I could probably really add to it is, you mentioned JP, and then also Peter were two probably the guys that I worked with the most. Just absolute professionals. Like, you got people with talent, and then you've got people like JP and Peter who are the ultimate talent and the ultimate professionals. So when you have people like that heavily involved, that don't need to be that passionate and that smart and that dedicated, that I think that probably was another huge reason why the brand succeeded like it did.
They were also very aware, like JP and Peter, Devin, like, most of those guys were always very aware of kind of how they were seen in the industry too. And I think a lot of that came from all of them coming from kind of being fans and skateboarding, where kind of learning that professionalism and kind of how things are perceived outside of kind of your your little orbit. Because this is way pre-social media where, a professional athlete could really kind of edit what they put out into the world. It's like, now, everything is literally out there, but, all of these guys were very, very aware of, okay, here's what I'm putting out. Here's what magazine interviews I'm putting out. This is going to be a cover. This shot I'm saving for this, and working with all the photographers and editors. Like, it was all very professionally done from their side and on the 4-star side to make all of that happen. And that's really what elevated the team riders to kind of that status. Like, Burton had 7 about the same time, or maybe even before Forum did, but the level of riding and the level of media that was put out and the level of scrutiny that was put on the video parts. Like, I remember when I think it was True Life came out, and it was like 22 and a half minutes long, and people were like, oh, what's that all about? It's like, well, we're not putting any shit in it. Like, that's pretty much like, it's all A grade. That's all that's out there. And then people are still watching that video, and that's why, it's kind of becomes that. So everybody, I will say, Raul included, and he was probably number 1 at that, was very, very, I don't think I've really met anyone else at like the owner level in the industry, like to date, besides maybe Wooly, that was kind of at that level of scrutiny for things with their team riders. And Jake, I would say is up there.
That's funny. Actually, I got kind of the inside from when Travis Wood was in here about the whole Forum 8 and the Burton 7. Somebody tipped off.
Yeah.
I think it was Travis about, the Burton launching the 7. And so you got Forum hurry up and put out the 8 before, which is kind of a funny story. It's like, oh, let's beat Burton, But that's rad. Rob, a question for you. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, go ahead.
Say something. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, just on the Burton tip-off side of things, there was kind of a funny one that, it's so many years later now that I was in New York City with Raul, and we were just in the back of a cab, and someone from inside Burton called, and this is when they were trying to poach Jeremy and JP from us. And, I got the call, and it was literally just Raul and I in the cab, and I hung up the phone. I'm like, hey, just so you know, like, Jeremy and JP are like at Burton right now. Like, they're trying to poach our guys. And, most people would get pissed. Raul literally hung up the phone and called, I think it was JP, I think it was JP. And he's just like, hey, buddy, where are you at right now? He's like, is it cold up there? And so, they're like, oh, how'd you know we were up here? He's like, I have people everywhere. And so it was just kind of a funny thing. And long story short, like, Jeremy ended up going to Burton and JP stayed. But yeah, it was just one of those things. Like, Raul was just so like, nothing was stopping him at all. Like, that's just how he was,
That's so rad. Totally. Rob, I wanted to ask, so when you guys were going on these tours, these trips to go gather, design ideas, how much actually was implemented into the apparel or outerwear, or was it just more for fun? I'm just curious.
Oh, it was crucial.
Okay.
Oh, totally. I mean, we got to go to every great market around the world and see what was kind of coming up next, or what was the new little idea. And you got to do a lot of fishing to catch the better fish, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It really was research. Like, we hustled. We had fun, but we hustled.
Right. Okay. Let's get closer to closing this out about like the end of that whole 4-star era, and then we can get into like when Burton and that and all that, and then the second team came about. But I wanted to ask you guys, what was it like, or like what was it like towards the end of 4-star? Did you guys see an incoming? Because there's a couple people I've asked this, and they kind of beat it around the bush on answering the questions, but like, I know there was a hype. Forum 8, True Life, Resistance, things are popping off. Things are, things are flying off the shelf. You guys kind of perfected the products. So what was it like? And when did you guys know that like things were starting to change and come to an end?
Well, one of the ways we knew is checks would come out on Friday. And if you didn't grab your check and go straight to the bank and cash it, you don't deposit it, you cashed it.
Yeah.
And then put it in your account. That was a pretty good sign that stuff was on the rocks.
Yeah, when Evan would come back to his desk and play the sample from R. Kelly, Ignition, bounce, 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 like on payday for his check. Like, so I mean that was kind of getting really towards like the pointy end of it for sure. We were making a movie that previous a year or so previous, and like it really kind of became apparent like, okay, things just aren't lining up here. Like, things are taking a long time to get paid for. Riders aren't getting paid. Paychecks obviously are bouncing. Production's coming in late. So there were just all these indicators that we could clearly see. And then, when we had to start cutting things back, not only like internal, people, unfortunately, but also, ad spending and everything else like that kind of was the beginning of, okay, like what's happening here. And like all of this was happening on the Circa side as well. So the funny thing was like both of the brands were still kind of, Forum wasn't growing and Blend and Foursquare weren't growing as fast, but they were still like fairly steady for what the industry was doing at the time. But Circa was just, gangbusters, and whatever Raul did with Snow, one day, he calls up, he's like, hey, I'm starting a shoe brand. And I was like, well, what guys do you have? Did you get any good skaters? He's like, we got Thomas and we have Muska. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess you have to do the best ones. So Circa was just kind of, had really some good momentum going, but there was just so much going on the Snow side of things. That's really when, the few years after Circa started, it just became like, I think too much to sustain. And then honestly, I will say, and it's still kind of a thing with the snow industry, like, when you're when a company is paying for something in June or July and the shops don't pay for it till February, unless you're very, very on your game, it just doesn't work. It just does not work. So that was a big challenge there for sure.
That's right. Oh, I think Jared's going to join us. Hold on one sec.
Oh, there we go. He'll have all the stories.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jared.
Hey.
What's up?
Good to see you all. Wait, how are you guys all the
Welcome.
same age as the last time I saw you?
Including
this
me?
sucks. I was like expecting you guys to be all old. All right, well, I'll be the old guy.
We are.
Age is just a number, Jared.
Yeah,
I could
Jared,
put my glasses on for a minute.
Wait a minute,
I've got
I
mine
need to get
too.
out some snowboards or something and put them in the background. Hold on. Let's see what do I got? Actually, hold on.
Hey, Jared, just grab whatever you need.
Here we go.
Hang on here.
Put some
boom.
some stuff. Some
If it's
stuff.
not a forum board, get it out of there.
Just
kidding.
What? I don't know if I have any of those in here. Okay, there we go.
That's all good.
Oh wait,
Jared, just to get you caught up on the conversation. You're good.
Sorry.
Just get you caught up on the conversation where we just talked about 4-star distribution and before pre-Burton. This episode's more about that Burton acquisition and that transition, and then what you guys did with Forum after Burton and all the way till its closing. So we've kind of just been talking about some different stories. But do you want to jump in really quick and let us know? Tell me when did you join either 4-star or the program, and what your role was at the company?
Let's see. Well, originally, okay. I don't know. I originally my roommate Andy Wright got sponsored by Special Blend, and Special Blend was like the first company to make, like, we were wearing, I don't know if you've already talked about all this, but we were like wearing Carhartts basically to the mountain, and they were getting wet, and it's kind of miserable. You looked good getting out of the car, but then like it kind of sucked after like a couple runs. And Raul, I think, was, at least as far as we knew, he was like the first one to make Carhartts waterproof. Andy Wright started riding for him, and I was like super jealous. I was like, man, that's amazing. And I guess I was sort of the graphic designer for our little magazine, and Raul called us up and wanted us to do some ads for him. And Andy was still a snowboarder, so he was just like, I'm going to go snowboard. I want to snowboard for Special Blend. I don't want to do the ads. And I was kind of like, the writing was on the wall. I wasn't a snowboarder. I was the guy that did the ads. So I originally just freelanced for Special Blend, And then it sort of, I wasn't really sure what was going on because I never was in the office, but Nico was, I don't know if you guys have talked about Nico much, but
Not yet.
he was sort of, it was kind of hard to tell what, I don't think he was in the office, but he was doing some and I was doing some. And, but it was really kind of like informal. And then Forum came along, actually Foursquare came along. And I ended up working with Peter. Like he ended up coming over to my house one day, and I was still sort of in the mode where like Peter Lyon was, a snowboarder, and I'm like, why is like arguably the world's number one snowboarder, or in the top whatever 3 or something at the time. Why is he at my house? Like I was a little starstruck. So I guess we did the first season of Foursquare together, at least the catalog, and I'm trying to remember. I guess I might have done like the first ads and stuff for that. And then Forum came along a little bit later, like maybe a year later. And it was like Forum was crazy when it started because it was it Raul and Greg DeLay? Oh, do you guys remember wasn't there like 3?
Yeah,
Mac Dog, right?
Yeah, and Greg DeLay.
And I remember
Greg,
trying to
yeah.
like do a board graphic or like even just talk about the company. And it was like 3 dudes that, I mean, it was like the opposite sides of magnets all trying to push together. And and it was like, man, this is going to go nowhere. Like this is doomed. And I ended up getting a job working for Burton. And I was like, well, this is where it's at. I'm going to go work for Burton. And I remember the whole time I was working at Burton, I think I worked there for like 4 years, watching Forum just turn into this like force. It was like every Burton meeting was about how Forum was killing us. And I remember going to the ASR trade show and sitting there and watching the Resistance. And I was like, man, what am I doing working for Burton? Like, I need to get back with like these guys. And that, like about a year later, I think I was working at Forum again, like in-house, and like had an official job. And I think the title was like brand manager. And I still don't exactly know what that is, but it seemed like I was sort of like, it was weird because Nico had done all this great work for, really putting Forum on the map, like from a marketing standpoint. And I'm not talking about the writing, and because the writing was obviously the reason why anyone paid attention to any of that stuff. But it was, like he did some brilliant work, and he didn't seem like he made very many friends because it seemed like, I don't know, there was like this real need to like move on from that era. And I guess that was like what was exciting to me, is like, oh, cool, we're gonna like really take this to the next level, and we're gonna use all these like Burton tricks or whatever that I had learned, or I thought I'd learned. And I realized like a lot of that stuff only works when you're Burton, and kind of vice versa, right? Like, so like, I don't know, it was a little bit, I think I was surprised when, and I don't know if I should say all this stuff, but I remember like seeing our first sales numbers, like for example, the first year, because the first like year I was there, it was amazing. It's like parties, and I mean, we just couldn't spend enough money, and it just seemed like everything, like there was no like, oh yeah, you can't do that. That's whatever. I mean, I remember going to Vegas and we're setting up a party, and I don't remember who was going to play. Dan, you probably remember this. Like, was it like, was Method Man or something?
There was one where 50 Cent was supposed to play, and Noriega was opening up for him. And then we got pretty much the best DJs in the world to like open for him. They were like DMC champion, huge. We were all big fans of those guys. And then, that was kind of the biggest
stuff,
one.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
But,
and then 50
like,
Cent
what were we spending?
didn't show up, but Noriega did. That was a crazy party. I mean, that party probably cost $100,000, like easy.
Yeah, like, exactly.
That's
so
wild.
like we'd put together, and like, I remember walking around Vegas, like trying to like, I went out for something where I was like trying to find, like, we were going to book spaces to do this or something, and for some reason, like I had to do it. This was probably like in the first year, so it was like, and I remember like just like these guys in Vegas were like kind of like, yeah, we'll take your money. Like there was like opening up every door, and I mean, it was it was just at the tail end of watching, like, every year you just made more money no matter what you did in
Yeah.
snowboarding. And unfortunately, that was like my first real foray into business. And I just thought that's the way it was. You just, like, no matter what you do, you just make more money. And I remember seeing our sales numbers after that first year, and I like saw it on a spreadsheet, and they wouldn't let us have the spreadsheet. I had to see it on somebody's computer. Like, I was like looking over someone's shoulder, and they were like, "You can't see that, dude," you know. And I'm like, "Well, it's kind of important. Like, you're asking me how
Like,
many
I work
T-shirts
here.
we should order, and I'd like to know how." Yeah, and I work here. I'd like to know how many, like, because like every day was like you'd be sitting at your computer, and someone would come up to you and say, like, "Okay, I'm placing the PO for, next year's T-shirt orders. How many should I order, and of what SKU?" I'm like, "Man, we haven't even designed them yet. Like, how are we ordering these? Like, how many did we sell last year? I don't know." And they'd be like, "Oh, I can't tell you that. Like, you just, like, we're just supposed to know." Like, and I remember seeing the sales numbers and just doing the quick math, and I'm like, "Oh my God, like I don't even know if this is covering our payroll." Like this, like it was a real, like, because at Burton, and I didn't actually work for Burton before. I'd worked for the design studio that did the stuff for Burton, but we were pretty intertwined. I mean, we had a knowledge of, how much business they were doing, like, financially. And when I saw, like we weren't, I mean, we were like 5% or something, maybe even less, but they're still like 100% of their, like, mind share or whatever. Like, they assumed we were going to put them out of business. And I was like, I don't see how this can continue. And then it seemed like after that, we really just sort of limped along for a couple of years. And I
Hmm.
think everybody wanted to quit, but at the same time, it was like, like, ah, like, this thing is really great. And
Yeah, we'd all
I don't know.
invested so much time and like heart into it at that point. Like, it was just difficult to take that step on, like, who are we going to go work for, like, at that point. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I remember going and talking to other companies too. And I was like,
yeah,
man, like, if it's not this one, like, I don't even really want to be in this industry anymore. Like, I don't know. It seemed like, and then, Burton really threw us a life, you know, lifesaver, right? Like, I mean, it
Well,
was like to
actually,
the point
Jared,
where,
hold on.
yeah.
Just really quick, 'cause that's the where you're about to
Okay, we're
get
caught
right to
up.
the next
Sorry.
point, kind of where
Yeah.
yeah, right where we're getting ready to get into is transitioning. Because I just asked, because I know Knox came in 2006, the same year I did, but Rob and Dan and yourself were there when the all started to collapse. So my last question to them was, like, when did you guys see the writing on the wall, knowing that you guys were absolutely in trouble at Forum and something needed to change? So we're kind of at that point, and
Okay.
Rob
I
and
mean,
Dan were telling me about, if
I
you didn't
think
cash your check right away, you're an idiot. So when did you realize that it was the writing was on the wall, and it was like either you guys were going to go out of business or something had to happen?
I mean, I think honestly, it was in that first year. It was like in the spring, and when I saw, like, after we came back from trade show time, and I was, yeah, I think it started with T-shirts. It might have been, my memory is not that great of, there was a lot of stuff going on, but it might have been boards even. Like, you'd be walking down the hall, and then one of the owners would, like, Marcus would pull you in, like, "Why are the boards so expensive?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, relative to what? Like, how much are they? How much should they be? And he'd be like, "Ah," like, no answers. And he'd just, like, go back in his office. And I'm like, huh, that was okay. Well, maybe I'll go find out how much. And I think something like that prompted me to look over someone's shoulder, which and see, like, like, how much we were selling, like, our gross numbers. And I just remember it was just, like, it hit me in the stomach, and I was like, what have I done? Like, what have I done? Like, there's no way that this just can't go forward. And every time, like, my stepfather was kind of a business guy. He ran a missile factory in Utah, and I would tell him what was going on, and I'd say, like, does this ever happen? He's like, they're not gonna be in business very long. Like, that's just, like, that just can't work. So I guess I was kind of early on, but I don't know, something. It was a rad job. I mean, you couldn't beat I don't know. I mean, don't you guys agree? Like,
Yeah.
how
yeah.
cool
That,
was what we got
especially
to do?
like where we all were in our lives at the time, like we were, maybe married or had girlfriends. We didn't have kids. Like we were, kind of had open schedules to kind of do anything. And so like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? We're going to work with rad people on rad things.
Yeah.
And like, there really was no
Yep.
limit to that. And so, for us, it's like, oh, what am I going to go work for some like sunglass company that's full of a bunch of suits or something like that and be miserable? Like it just kind of came down to that. Like, but yeah, I will say it was pretty close to when I first moved out from Vermont and moved from the rep job. And I sat down with Ed Wong, who if you can get that guy in this podcast, man. But so he was our air quotes financial director. And so for me, I just moved across the country, everything else. I'm like, okay, Ed, so marketing, like, what are we looking at for, what's the remaining budget for this year? What's the remaining budget for the following year? And like, even as a rep agency,
I could be
like,
Ed Wong in this. I could be Ed Wong in this conversation if you want.
Yeah. Hey, Ed.
Budget?
Okay, Ed.
Budget is a very interesting question. And that will depend upon what like, there was no answer. It was just like this weird circular, like very philosophical sounding, but then like, no, we have no, we don't do budgets. It's basically we'd say we don't have a budget. We just
you spend what you think you'll need to.
That kind of seems to be the common theme. So then, so now like everything, you guys can see that it's all starting to happen. So 2005 comes around and Burton, pretty much hands Forum, gives them a bone pretty much to take over.
Actually, there was
Does
one.
anybody
There
know
was
what Burton?
There was
Go
one
ahead,
thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's one thing. I don't know if you guys remember the. Wasn't there a time? I think it was me and Dan actually. Didn't we have one of those meetings? Okay, Raul had this giant cylindrical fish tank in his office, this thing. And I remember when he built it, it was filled with like the most exotic fish you ever. It was just beautiful.
Hundreds of
and you
dollars
go in
a
and have
week to
these
take care
meetings
of
with
it.
them. Oh yeah, and the meetings you'd have in front of that fish tank were just, I mean, like it was like, well, what color should I paint my car or something like that. It wasn't. They weren't like very serious business meetings, right? And I remember like over time. What did you say it cost a week to maintain the fish tank?
Couple $100. He had a fish guy that
At
would
least
come in because I remember coming up the stairs and there was this guy with like 2 Ziploc bags full of fish to go like replace. I'm just like,
probably like $1,600 worth of fish or something, right? And and I remember like those meetings, like as it was going on, the fish tank started getting cloudier, fewer fish, right? Like that really happened, right? And,
like the fish guy he wasn't getting paid.
No, nobody was getting paid. I mean, I was, there were nightmares about that, and it was writers that were not getting paid too, and that was kind of that was a thing. But I remember Dan and I getting called in. I remember being in that office, and it was like, okay, like let's just say you need to, we need to get rid of we need to reduce our labor force. And I don't remember what words they used, but like, who would we how could we keep the lights on, or who could we spare to lose or whatever? And I think we made a list, right? It was pretty evil, right? And I was just kind of like, like
it wasn't fun. That's for sure.
Because at first I remember resisting and like, no, it's we're not, like, why are you asking us or whatever? And then it kind of turned into like, well, nobody's going to have a job if we don't do this. And so that was like the big like firing, and we all obviously escaped it, but like it was like there's probably a few more boxes on here of people that would have a lot to say that
well, and we were kind of the last
filtered
people
out.
standing. We were kind of the last
at the
people
very
standing.
end.
Besides
It was
Evan, it was the four of us.
So it was you guys and Evan. I tried to get a hold of Evan. He was busy, but I would have loved to have him part of this conversation. So
for sure.
2005, Burton buys it. Did you guys was it kind of like a sigh of relief? Like, oh, okay, like shit, we might be able to like continue on, because I know I came on in 2006. Knox, you came 2006, correct? But I actually want to ask you this, Knox. If you already saw the writing on the wall, and kind of, I'm sure you heard through the grapevine what was going on at Forum. What made you decide to come over to Forum like and lead Vans?
Well, before I go into that, I just want to say what these three dudes did in snowboarding and what they built was incredible. And also, one person I look up to this day is MacDog, creating all the movies, the team. So like, I guess to answer your question, kind of what they built over the years and what I saw from what I like to do is why I went over. And I kind of knew Burton was stable, so I was willing to jump over. But yeah, that's why really it was the product, it was the marketing, it was the team. When I came on, half the team just left, and I'm always up for a challenge, so it was a good time.
That's right. So Jared, Rob, and Dan, Burton is kind of helped give you guys a lifeline. What was there a change, like a shift in you guys' like perspective? Like, okay, hey, we have to change everything we do because obviously the Forum 8 was getting older. Jeremy was leaving. I think we still had Devin, quite a bit of some of the Forum 8. But then like the shift happens to like what I call the second team of Forum, where like I myself come along. Like what was kind of like the mood around the office and like the mindset of it, like, okay, let's take this thing by the horns and actually make this a profitable company.
I think
I don't know. Go ahead, please.
Whoever wants to go first.
The first thing I remember is Laurent Podevon, who was the president of Burton at the time, and Edward Giard, who was, he had come from, running the Burton hard goods program, and he was an engineer and very sharp guy, but he was definitely, strictly business guy. And both of those guys were very, opposite to anybody that had been like inside the Forum walls, but in a good way, I would say. And, that first meeting, I just remember Laurent going, "Oh, so what do you guys want to do with this thing?" Which was not what I was expecting. I was expecting like, here's what we're going to do with this thing. Like, this is gone. So, to their credit, they kind of were like, "Hey, what do you want to do with this thing?" Because, telling the story, like they had never bought a company and we obviously had never been bought. So we were kind of in this like awkward, like first date of like, what do you guys want to do? But then it became like by the end of that meeting, like, okay, we need to shore up like team and product, everything else there. Like we need to shore up like the business side of it and kind of start to put like, some measurable goals and kind of where we're at and where we want to be at, like all the kind of business 101 things that just Forum never really had. And I think Burton, to their credit, since day one has operated like that. And any company that I've worked for since operates like that. So that was kind of the first thing is like, hey, let's shore up the business. Let's figure out like how we can, keep the team that we have. What are we going to do with them? What can we afford to do? Like sales reps, distributors, everything else. Like there was all this like back end, like I always call it like aligning the pipes that needed to be done. So that was kind of the first step. And then we kind of moved into, okay, what do we do? Like you said, the team was getting a little bit older. So we'd lost some team riders, like we were about to lose some other ones. So that became like kind of top of mind. And then bringing up some, younger guys became important. Like we worked with, that's when we brought on like Pat Moore and Travis Kennedy and Jake Blauvelt and all of those guys. We started the Young Blood program and like had to run a contest that, we hired a guy, Pat Morgan, that was really solid at events at the time that, helped us with that and kind of just started to put the things that we were missing into the company. And I was excited about it. There was the honeymoon phase, but yeah, initially I was very excited about it and very like, eager to like make it happen. We were like, finally, okay, now we have the resources, we can make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rob, you want to go next? And then Jared, I'll jump to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan kind of brings up something. For me, it was almost a little bit of like imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
like has been noted before. The brand seemed to be doing great, but internally we all knew that there was some crap going on. When I first started, I was like, well, how much, what's the manufacturer's cost on this? And they're like, oh, you don't need to know that information.
Nope. Just make it like, cheap or cheaper.
Yeah,
it needs to be cheaper.
What to price this at? So I worked hard over a couple of years to try and get the pricing to a reasonable level, and our margins would be at a reasonable level. And when Burton came in, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like our margin calculation is this, and that's reasonable. Burton calculated their margins different. And all of a sudden we were 10 points below of what their target would be. And I was just like,
I mean, at least 10 points below, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, on
10 hard points.
on outerwear, it was only
Yeah.
10. I don't know about hard goods. And I just remember at that point thinking, all right, now we're playing, we're playing in real business. Before
Yeah.
it was emotion and energy and momentum and that kind of stuff. And this was 1 and 1 equals 2. You're not fudging that.
Yeah.
But the exciting part, or I think the part that the magic there was what Evan, Dan, Jared kept doing on the branding and marketing side. They kept the creative energy. They kept the discipline of always shooting for, the best, and curating an amazing end result. And when you partner that with operationally sound situation, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Burton did come in and for sure save the situation.
oh yeah, they definitely do. I mean, do you remember? I like, for me, like I had already had kind of a history with them, and so it was like, I think like that was good and bad, because I could kind of see what, like I kind of remembered what how that, I'm like, oh, I remember like the various product managers at Burton always being kind of squeezed really to I mean, there was a lot of pressure all of a sudden. Not initially. Initially it was like just party, and it was I'd say that first year, like, I mean, Burton communicated in spreadsheets. Do you remember this? Like, we would get these spreadsheets and it'd be like, oh my God, like this is what was on the, the 3 guys that were allowed to look at spreadsheets in the forum office,
this is it.
like, but now we all had the spreadsheets. And like, I remember trying to communicate like, oh, you couldn't really, there was stuff you couldn't just put in an email. We had to start making our own spreadsheets. And I would love to go back and look at some of these bullshit spreadsheets that I know I made, like trying, and because I remember showing one to Edward, Edward, right? Edward.
Yeah, Edward,
and he was just like, usually the total goes at the bottom of a column of numbers, not at the top. And, it's really confusing because you've mixed the expenses and the income on the same, you don't do it like, and I remember I was like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. I need to go look at a book or something and figure out how to actually, do a budget. But I remember us doing our first budget, and because none of us knew how much anything cost, other than just like
no one had
SIA
ever
party,
told us.
where we like
We knew how much
it probably cost
we
more
knew how
than
much riders got, but that was kind of it. Like
that was it.
From my
That was
side,
it.
it's like
And
we knew what we spent on Transworld Snowboarder and like what riders got, but other than that, everything was kind of kept from us, including like
yeah,
how
so
much
like
promo we sent.
your first marketing budget was like, here's the team, and then here's advertising. Like, yeah, what else do we spend? That should do it.
Yeah.
You're
good.
And I remember my first budget, I was like, oh my, like, I mean, like for bindings and stuff, like, I mean, we spent like, like, I don't know I never knew what we were actually spending at the factories for molds and things. That was all kind of something that got worked out in the back room with like a cactus and 2 guys arm wrestling, or, I don't know if you know that reference, but the cactus on each side. All this, okay, so all of a sudden, sorry, I lost my train of thought with the cactus arm wrestle.
Budget spreadsheets.
All of a sudden I remember doing my first budget, and I was like, what does it cost to do any of this binding stuff? And okay, a guy needs to go to, travel a couple times a year. I remember, and I was like, come out with this budget, and it was like, 40 grand or something like that. And I'm like, I think they're going to expect us to spend more than this. And I remember it was really hard to make the budget like I remember, I think at the end of it, I think the tally was like maybe a couple $1 million, um, something like that. And I remember though getting through the cycle, and we were like in, I think I'm trying to think of what time of year it was. I guess it was trade show season, and realizing that we had not spent anywhere near we do these budget reports. Didn't we have to do them every week or every month or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
We do
Variance
a
reports
budget
every
report,
month. Yeah,
a variance
yeah,
report, like how much you spent. And
yeah,
I remember like I'd broken this budget down to like how much we were going to, I just, simple division by 12, because I didn't know when we spent what, or, I really,
yeah,
we hadn't been through a cycle. We'd never been responsible for it. So I didn't know how that worked. I didn't know what our terms were with vendors, any of that stuff. We just kind of made it up. But I remember having like, there's no way I'm going to be able to spend this money this year, and then they're going to cut my budget. I remember, like, didn't we go on a 2-week vacation after ISPO, and didn't we just went snowboarding for like 2 weeks, right?
Pretty much.
Just to spend the rest of the budget.
Well, I mean, it still didn't even like scratch the surface, because none of us had kids or any. We were just like, yeah, get someone to watch the dog for a couple extra weeks, and
Yeah, we'll go see some accounts.
I remember doing
do
that,
some
and then talking to
snowboarding.
the Burton guys about it. Like Edward, like when we came back, and he's like, oh, so tell me what you learned by the shop visits. And I'm like, yeah, we saw a lot of shops. We went to all kinds of shops. Like we went to the same resort every day for like a week and just like rode. Like we were like
Sick.
we were on vacation 100%. I didn't real. And then when it hit me, I was like, oh, we're expected. Like those aren't vacations. We're supposed to like actually work. That was like the first year. I don't know that it continued like that, but the first couple of years, it was like, we were kind of, I mean, I don't know. Like Dan, I remember you ran out of money. You were the one that ran out of money, and we're like, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay for all this stuff. And
Yeah, there
I
were some
remember
things that
sitting
were
there
kind of like we never had in the marketing budget before that were like, okay, here's the, there was like travel and everything else. And like, it was the same thing. Like on the 4-star side, we never got visibility into travel budgets and like what we paid for and what we didn't pay for. And so we budgeted, as much as we possibly could that was reasonable, but then people filming parts and everything else was pretty much gone within like 5 months or something like that. We're like, okay, well, here comes the rest of it. And then
looking back on it, the way 4-star did the videos, it was like pay the writers, pay for their travel, and then pay MacDog. It was like,
yeah.
It was like,
And then we didn't make
last.
Yeah, and then we didn't make any money back on the movies either, which was kind of a fatal flaw in like the thing too. And that was kind of a rough patch too, because at some point, when we basically were like, okay, well, we just paid. If you calculate paying the writers, take that out of it, but then put the travel into it, and then what it cost to sponsor the video. We were probably in it for, what'd you say, Jared? $400,000, probably $450.
I mean, it was
for that part of it.
I think it was like I think like the rough math was it was about $1 million to make these movies, right?
Yeah.
And then back then you would sell the movie. Like this is like crazy to even think about, but on VHS, like the True Life, like that was like my first, like, I mean, that was like the happiest time ever. Like sitting down with all that amazing footage and just like, I don't know, like, I mean, I just got to do the part in front of the footage, but still like, it was so cool. But then figuring out, like, I remember being involved because we had to order VHS versus DVD at that time. And I remember
it was right at the transition.
Yeah, it was like 90-10. Like maybe 95-5, and then the next year, I don't know, maybe 80-20, and then I think by that never was a VHS, right? Like that would have been DVDs, but then it was released on the
that was
iTunes
DVD.
store.
I've got one right here. Actually, that's where I wanted to get to my next point too. Actually, like right where you're at, Jared, is like now we're at that 2006. That's a new ownership, new team. Pretty much, we're getting to a new team. But like what was it like the whole strategy behind Knox? I want you to jump on here too, because you're like, yeah, this is where you come in as far as like building a new team that was like not trying to mimic being the Forum 8, but trying to transition to building another team that can compete with what the Forum 8 did. Not saying that we ever did, because Forum 8 is so freaking iconic, but I felt like the second team, like what you guys put together from like in-house and the marketing and putting together a team was pretty fucking phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like with the movie
Yeah,
that.
agreed.
Still, if I put out, like, I could put out anything I want on my Instagram. If I say one thing about that, I can't even keep up with my comments and my DMs. It's the craziest shit ever. It's like, that's the only people know. They're like, dude, you were in that. And I'm like, yeah, and a couple other movies too. But that's all they give a shit is that. But let's talk about that year, because there's a lot that went on that year.
Well, I mean, that
From
was
like a creative. Go ahead, Jared.
no, I was gonna say, like, from like the creative side of it seemed like it really sort of, I don't know, a lot of it was like, I mean, it was that loud Evan Rose in the office that, like, I mean, that was the idea for the name. It's like, it'll be that video, that, everyone talks about that video. Yeah, have you seen that video? And you just, once he started that, it was, with the that stuff, you just couldn't shut him up. And it was like, if we don't call it that, like Office, I mean, that's where like the Office side of it came in. But, and I think Dan, you get like special credit for cover, like, because that movie wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have just been like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go entirely over budget, like, by whatever it takes.
It went to the point that it's so funny that when we were doing the thank you credits, like as a dig, I put thank you marketing GL 96100. That was like the GL number for all the marketing expenses. Like,
oh, that's
in Burton
right.
For our expenses.
Yeah.
And so in the
that was
credits,
the Underhills tab.
yeah. But we started to kind of say that we're like, well, if we don't spend this, like, put it on the Underhills tab. And like, that was pretty much it. And like, we basically had to get that thing done. And the good thing was we actually made money back from that movie, but we probably didn't break even, but it was pretty crucial for the brand. And people are talking about it 20 years later. So we did something right.
I got a question if you guys remember there, because like when we're talking about budgets, staying at the Lidmar for over a month is not the cheapest place to be. Yeah. And it's not the most strategic way to go about it. So and then when we jump over to Finland, we go to the Klauske, which is just as expensive. But do any of you guys remember what the total bill was for the Lidmar when we got done shooting there? Like, does anybody remember what the total was?
I couldn't.
I never saw that. I never saw it. I mean,
I thought for sure you'd know the answer to this one. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
I actually, now that I think about it, I never really had a concept of what, I mean, I knew that we were spending a lot of money, like, to film this stuff. And like, but like, I never saw it tallied up, and I never really thought about it. Like, the hotel part of it just seemed like it was negligible, but I'm sure it wasn't.
I mean,
like,
it was
now that I'm
probably
an adult and have to pay for that stuff.
Yeah, depending how long.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things, like the hotel bills, usually would be like, depending on how long you'd stay somewhere, it was usually like $7,000 to $8,000, like a week, depending on how many people were on the crew. Also, and then JP kind of set the bar, because he'd go to Whistler and like stay at the chateau for like 3 weeks, including like 2 of those weeks were like rain days or whatever. So that was like in the 4-star days. But yeah, then when we started to send pretty big crews to Finland for a month, it starts to get pretty expensive. And then I think that was the year that you guys stayed in Michigan for quite a while too, right? Was that the year that you guys stayed in like way up northern peninsula Michigan, like you and Eddie maybe?
Yeah, we did. We did the UP. I think the UP was Forever. Was it? What was the video after that? Was it Forever or Fuck It?
It was Forum or Against Him.
Oh, Forum,
I
Oregon.
think that, so then I think it was a year after that because I remember being in the UP because they gave us the key to the city. I'm
Yeah,
sure if you
yeah.
guys remember
Of
that.
course.
Like
Yeah.
You
that was a
you spend
very
$9 million in our town. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You guys are our best customers.
yeah, I know. So yeah, that we didn't spend much time. That I filmed pretty much my whole everything in Sweden and Finland. I remember it
Yeah.
rained. We went over to Finland. We hopped on the boat, went to Finland, and we were only there for like a week, and then it rained, and we ended up coming back to Sweden, back to the Lidmar. But
Yeah.
just
Well, I
as far as
remember
that
the
expense
Euro too.
goes,
Like when we were looking at that year, we're just like everyone's filming in Europe. We're just like the Euro's fucking us. Like it's like because the Euro was worth way more than the US dollar. So a hotel room that would be,
yeah, I
you
remember
know,
at one point it was
yeah,
about. I mean, it was like 135
140
or something. I
something.
remember
Yeah,
having to
yeah,
do. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe it was even
crazy.
more because I remember like we were
yeah,
still making stuff there, and I remember like
yeah. And like the ISPO booth,
the
everything was just
pricing tool,
way more.
the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
the spreadsheet of
I gotta.
spreadsheets. Like, oh,
yeah.
like we're
I
moving.
wanted
We
to
got to
ask you
move that
guys this
stuff to China.
question. This is. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying, Jared?
I would, you know what? It's probably the least interesting thing. I was just thinking we were in the process of moving manufacturing to China, and I still I still like come across as like an international businessman when I can talk about trying to move manufacturing to China in, um, like when we were trying to do boards there and stuff in the early 2000s. Like that was like a that was like a crazy thing. Like China was wild then.
Yeah.
I
Anyway, that's
bet.
that's kind of off topic. I think we should get back to the
Let's
fun
get
stuff.
we can get back on topic. I wanted to ask this because I this is something I've been wanting to run by you guys because many years later I had to face this. On the intro for that, when we
It's the
did
shit
everybody's
with the
intro,
movies in the U.S. You should do it this.
I know what's
has
coming.
anybody got
Do they?
has anybody got backlash for blackface is what they called it?
You know, uh, this is one that actually kind of keeps me up at night because I remember like because it's hard. Like you kind of have to go back to the time, the context, because like we were living in a time when I think, well, at least I know I personally thought that sexism, racism, we had defeated it. It was gone. It wasn't part of our lives anymore. And never mind the fact that our whole office was like white guys, but I never, I never thought like, I just, Jimmy Kimmel was doing blackface Carl Malone on TV, and the Chappelle Show was on, and it was like, oh, and there had been all those great skateboard graphics, like early '90s skateboard graphics, where they made fun of racism, and it was like, and they would kind
Yeah.
of like way over the top, and um, as I remember it, and Stevie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I remember like we had the idea, we were going to do everybody make everybody look like everybody else for
Hmm.
each one. Everyone looks like Devin, everyone looks like Stevie, everyone looks like Lowry, and I remember just like all of a sudden it's like, what are we going to do with Stevie exactly? Like how do we handle this? And I'm like, man, like, well, I don't know. And I we asked you, right? Like you were in on this.
I was fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll let you finish and I'll tell my
Yeah, so
perspective
I
like
like
after
so
because I
I
think it's
just want
funny,
to
but
like
yeah,
my memory, and I probably have changed things to make myself the hero of this story, but I remember like, well, like Stevie, like okay, like I was a little bit uncomfortable with it, and I was like, okay, whatever. And I remember then Edward coming, like he would come every 2 weeks, go golfing and mountain climbing, and then spend like what a half a day in the office. He'd meet with us each and be like, how's everything going? And we'd be like, great. And he'd be
How are
like,
the
that's good
spreadsheets
to
looking?
hear.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets looking good. And like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
just like
You're
he's like,
like,
and he's smart enough to be like, I'm never going to know what's going on here, but
yeah,
I am just going to trust these people, and I'm going to get out of their way. And this is probably one of the cases where he probably shouldn't have gotten out. But I remember him asking me, he was like, you're sure this is, you sure about this? And I remember I was like, well, I don't know. Like like Stevie says it's funny and it's cool, and I'm like, I don't know. And I mean, I should have known. I remember when the makeup artist that had to do it, because we hired like actual makeup people to do it. I
Yeah,
remember she
yeah.
was like, yeah, I don't do that. And I was like, well, come on. And she's like, well, I'm like, no one will ever. It's, I remember having to talk her into doing it,
Mhm.
and then I was like, looking at it on the screen, I was like, oh my god, like this is okay. Well, maybe any press is good press. I don't know. But I still feel like, I mean, I feel like there's something, I know there's something I could have done to stop that from happening. But at the same time, I was like, like it seemed like we were being true to who we were, and it wasn't ever meant to be racist, even though the most racist thing you can do. It was like I thought we were making fun of it. That was my position.
My
And
my take on it almost seemed too like the viewpoints that I saw, and I don't remember the filming of it or anything, but the viewpoints that I saw, it seemed like it almost got to the point where like, okay, you make everyone else look like everyone else. Like if you don't do that for Stevie, like that looks
yeah, that
awkward
was the
also,
other
right?
argument, right? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
even worse.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh well, where for us, like I think everybody coming from the skateboard world and everybody coming from like, hey, number one, we're all friends and we're all like tight, so we want to treat everybody the way that we would treat friends. And I think that was kind of like part of it too. And like Stevie can speak to it, but I think like at the time that was kind of the viewpoint too. It's just like, well, everyone's just gonna have to, we did it for everybody else, so it is that's
Yeah,
it. So
and
I don't know what your
that's
take on it,
that's
Steve.
true.
Yeah.
I thought it was
That's
the
a good
most
point, yeah.
awesome fucking thing we could have ever done, and I wouldn't have done it any different today, tomorrow, next season, or 3 years from now.
That's
And
good
I
to
only
hear.
brought that up just because, like, it was, I think, and I'm just make a joke of this, I think that was Travis Kennedy's probably the best day of his life.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
But
I'm glad
anyways, the only reason
I'm
I
glad you
brought-
said that.
the reason I brought that up is just because I literally didn't hear one thing about it for many, many, many years. Literally not one thing about it until like
Yeah.
the whole George Floyd thing. Well, obviously, we know what kind of times we went through there.
Yeah.
But then, like, I don't know if you guys remember that magazine with Russell on the front, but like, people were like honestly writing me so pissed, and I was like, first of all, I was 19 years old. I wanted to do it. It would have been
Yeah.
fucking awkward if I didn't do it and I was like, dude, we were having fun. Times are different there. But so I just thought I'd throw that out there just randomly because I thought about it because sometimes
No.
people bring that up. But I'm like, dude, yeah, it's nothing to do with racism. It was literally all we were doing was filming a video, and that was part of what we were doing, and I would do it again today.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
glad that you did bring it up, because like I think it just shows like the level of like how tight everyone was at that time. Like you guys had just gone
Yeah.
through that entire year filming and traveling, staying, you guys were tight.
Room
so like, I
service.
think that yeah, a lot of room service. So
Lobster
yeah, I
spring
think,
rolls, baby.
yeah. So I think that's the culmination, like at the end of that movie, particular year, was pretty unique. And like for me, like I look at it like that's really like the skate like DNA that's always been in all of these brands. And I think that was kind of their secret sauce was, number one, do we think it's cool? Do we like it? Does it feel right? And sometimes those decisions are tricky and look different years down the road, but I'm glad that you were hyped on it in the long run, for sure.
Super. I thought it was so,
Yeah.
I thought it was like the coolest thing to do because, again, like Jared, I can't remember which one, Jared, you or Dan were saying, it's like, how weird would it have been if we didn't do that? But anyways,
Yeah.
so
Well,
moving
that
on,
was-
I just thought
no, but didn't Snowboarder get sued over it? Do you
They
guys know
might
about
have.
this?
I think they like people definitely
But this was in the
running
last-
the print ad.
No, this is in the last
I think the
like 4 or 5
NAACP
years.
was trying to go after somebody for a while there or
Yeah,
something. I don't know the truth, but yeah.
Okay, so I heard I got a phone call that I didn't return, and
Smart.
I can't remember who it was from. Now I'm trying. I want to say it was. Okay, I can't remember where it was from, but there was something going on. The reason why Snowboarder do like an apology issue or something, or
They might have,
like
yeah.
I think it wasn't that part of the one with Russell in it, like the when
I
they,
think
like the
so.
years later, the one that
Oh,
yeah, because
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
I had an article in there and I had to like talk about the whole thing,
Yeah.
and I thought it was ridiculous. Like I'm not disrespecting anybody that they might have believed differently or whatever, you know. And I don't want to stick too much on this topic. I just thought I wanted to throw it out there, but I do remember having to like issue an apology in there. But I also was like, dude, that was like
You had to
at the
apologize.
time. This I was like,
I
this,
mean,
yeah, like I'm talking. People were like super mad at me, and I'm like, I was 19. This was 15 years ago. It's not like it is now. So you know, like no
Yeah.
disrespect for like how times are now, but that was 2006. We could do what the hell we wanted to do, and we did.
Yeah.
I mean that's.
And we
So
I mean
we
that's
kind of
that's
had
how.
a history
Yeah.
for doing kind of things that were on the edge. Like, I don't know if you remember,
Yeah.
Jared. And this was right after we were acquired. We did a photo shoot in LA at the Standard Hotel, and Jared had hired like a super high-end photographer. And the whole idea was, okay, every rider's with 5 girls. So I think Yanni was like 5 flight attendants, and someone was, you know, in their room, and it was Kennedy was with 5 nurses, and they're all dressed the same. And then for Jake
remember this
and Pat, we shot all the girls by the pool with the guys in bikinis. But then when the ad came out, I think you photoshopped it, Jared, where it looks like the girls are all naked standing next to them on the roof of the Standard Hotel. And we got so much shit for that at the time. And the, you know, magazines didn't want to run it. We're just like, well, you know, it's going to be the most exciting ad you'll have in your magazine. So we kind of had that history of like, hey, we're going to do kind of what
Edgy.
we think.
But
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
edgy.
set the brands apart. And that's why
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was what it is doing shit like
Yeah.
that. And that's so important, you know, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
So-
I always enjoyed all the. I was always looking forward to photo shoot time or you know, shooting for the catalog. Except being in Southern California in fucking outerwear shooting
Yeah.
when it's 900 degrees outside, and you guys like, oh no,
Yeah.
I used to be like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. You can't shoot this somewhere else. But anyways, yeah, I just touching for. But let's, you know, on the marketing side of things too. Like now we're developing a new team that's dropped. People are super hyped on it. Like. The next movie was For or Against Them, right? Is what you said, Knox?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that movie was really rad because of creativity, like just like the way we shot it and all that. But let's talk about that, like the For or Against Them era, and like I thought the outerwear that year was super rad. The all the gear we were running was super rad because it was. I feel like I remember that year everything was really loud, right? And we had, I think at this time, is this when John Jay joined our team too? Because at this point we had like an all-star cast team. So it was like, we weren't Forum 8, but we were Forum 2, like the second version. But we were like, it was fucking rad. But do you guys remember that year? Like Forum? Yeah. Who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Rob, are you shaking your head?
Is
Go
that
ahead,
the
jump
pink
in.
plaid year?
I think so.
Or like the Rasta stripes, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like a camo, Rob, that was like this little cool camo Gore-Tex jacket, green and black.
Oh,
I can't remember
That's
that
yes.
like, design.
That's it. That's another one. Just real quick, because you brought that up. There. One of the key things during all the tough times at the end of 4-Star that really kept me involved was working with Jared, working with Dan. Bryan, you came in later, but there was a few people that just made. I didn't want to work with anybody else. I was working with what I thought was, you know, the A team. And that camo that you're talking about is another guy named Cody Hudson, who he did that camo. And we had a green, tan, brown one, and then we had a white, kind of red, light blue one. And yeah, everything that we put up that during the development sort of meetings that reps were like, oh, I don't know about that. I think internally we were like, yeah, this will do good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that the product and the identifying the right talent and bringing those guys up from, rather than going out and buying someone to come in to the team, but elevating them through identifying or through the young blood ranks or whatever. That was, I mean, other than Volcom, like not too many other brands really fostered and identified talent as well. And like that 2.0, like you talked about, Stevie, I mean, just great. And then personalities on top of that. Like there are definitely personalities on the team that just made it fun and interesting and marketable.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by BYOB, Be Your Own Banker. Visit BeYourOwnBanker.com.
Also brought to you by PMC, Private Money Club. There are only two types of people in the world, people with money and people who need money. There's only one community that solves both problems. PrivateMoneyClub.com is the only dating site for money. I feel like the outerwear took a shift, and I'll just touch on this again, from like when I saw outerwear from back in the day, like what JP and Jeremy and all those guys used to ride. I love the direction it took because it was so unique. Like it was just like some of the patterns and stuff were like loud, but they were so unique that like, I don't know, just popped. And it kind of like, I felt like it helped with like who I was with the personality. Obviously I'm, just out there all the time. But I just felt like it was, I don't know, it was really rad. And like you're saying, also like the fostering of like the talent. Like there was just some like really rad personalities, but it was like there's such a team camaraderie. Like there's always just so much bonding going on from even like coming down there and spending time with you guys in house. Like it was always so fucking fun because everybody was just like, it was like just for everybody was friends. But yeah, I don't know who wants to go next and touch on like
one thing I will add when we're talking about excessive travel. I think one of the things that made the outerwear, well, actually, I think everything benefited from it was like these development trips we would go on, right? Which was like now that at the time I thought it was work, but now that I've actually done work, I'm like that was another vacation. But I mean, it was we'd go shopping for like
working holiday.
Exactly. All the same malls that they have in Southern California, we'd go to Hong Kong and Tokyo and right, like,
Yeah.
and try to buy samples in our sizes if we could, if it was available. And I mean, but there was like a pretty, I'd say it was pretty important, like going out and seeing what was out there in the world and like how can we be a part of that world somehow. I mean, I don't think we ever like had any aspirations of any of this stuff getting outside of snowboarding or anything, but we definitely looked at what was going on and were inspired by weird little things we'd find in Asia, right? Like it was mostly, I'm trying to think, because we didn't really do it. I mean, it was an Asia trip, right? Like it was always an Asia development trip.
Right? Omar and I did Europe for a couple of years on top of Asia. We did a couple around the world.
Those are the good years. Yeah. Like
those were the extra salad days.
Yeah.
The cool thing at the time was, you guys would have all of the, these, whether it's pattern ideas or, pockets or anything else that you'd bring back. And then literally it got put in front of the team, and the team, would, if they weren't backing it, it really wasn't happening. But if they were backing it, then it was going to happen no matter what. And that's when Rob brings up, like, we'd show stuff to sales reps, and they, these guys, eat off of what they, they get a commission off what they sell, so they have to sell it. So, we'd show it to them, and they're just like, I don't know, like, what are you guys doing? Like, can't we just make like a black jacket and this and that? And we're just like, no,
we have black.
We have the
black colorway.
Yeah. The team's all gonna, be riding this. Here's where they're going to be riding it, and here's why this is going to happen. And then it happened. So it was still like a very like team influence thing where it's like, hey, if they don't like this pink plaid, we're not going to make it, but they liked it. So you see Devin Walsh flying around in pink plaid for a couple, a year. And I still see those jackets everywhere. Yeah. It's kind of funny.
I know it's, what, that's actually was a really, really important part of, now that I'm thinking about it, like it's easy to trash the reps because they're not here. Right. But, I remember like them asking, like, because you put something up on the board and be like, boo, but then, like, what's the team going to wear? I'm like, well, honestly, these are we sampled these first because we had some guys through the office and they're like down with it. Like, this is going to be the team outfit. And that actually really influenced sales, right? Like that was like a for better or for worse. They were, I mean, they knew who was really driving it was, the guys out there, living in the hotel in Sweden.
Yeah,
Eating
and
lots
living
of
in the
spring rolls
outerwear.
and spending all
Yeah.
the budget. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's to like you're saying, Dan. Like we literally lived in the outerwear and the boots
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that stuff for
Yeah.
a month. I mean, I literally didn't have many clothes with me because I had to put as much outerwear as I could in my board bag, just because I knew that we had to be out there filming and working, and if I ripped something, I needed something else new. So, but yeah, we
Yeah.
lived in that stuff, and the looks we would get walking around like posh downtown Stockholm and places like this, going to dinner and wearing these bright ass outfits, all of us, was like it was so funny the way people looked at us. But then it became the normal because they just saw us around all the time. But yeah, it was fun, good times,
It was kind of a different era too, because I know, especially in Europe, like wearing your snowboard jacket like all the time out to like kids would always just wear that. Now people have, street jackets or whatever else, but like that was a major thing too, is like people were wearing the stuff as actual, like that was their jacket for the year, so something that was a little bit unique. It was kind of called for. So, you stand out. But yeah, that was a whole thing for years where, people were actually that didn't even snowboard were buying our stuff, which was, pretty rare at the time, especially.
Oh, definitely.
Let me just say one more
go ahead,
quick
bro.
thing on the brands in general. I can speak specifically on the apparel soft goods side. We definitely looked. We wanted to make sure that like you or Lowry or whoever was on the team, that Devin, like, what are they going to be hyped to wear? And definitely thought of that through the design process. So as much as you had a filter of what is the end product going to be, and we put your guys' consideration, the reps consideration, and then the research trips, and that's we put it through a filter, and we didn't just think of, well, what are the shops going to buy? We knew that it was so important for the athletes, for the team to get what they want, like what they got. And for filming, you got to stand out. Like, great, you have a black jacket, but at that
It's a
time,
nightmare.
it was all about filming. Like, so.
But I remember, I think it was Rob Mathis and there's a couple of times that either I can't remember if it was me or somebody else, but we'd show up with a black jacket on or something, and I just remember them being like, "Dude, you just want to make my job." Exactly. No, go change your jacket right now, and you're like, "Oh shit, okay," like it's okay to have black pants, but you better be popping up top. So, Bright was good, so I started to love some of the bright colors, because some of my best photos and some of the best photos I've seen come out from the other riders were in the brightest, craziest, like probably most edgy outerwear that we came out with, that I was kind of questionable sometimes, like I don't know how this is going to do, but it ends up being like the dopest stuff, where I end up seeing it all over the mountain the next season,
Yep.
Yeah. It's
you remember there was also the weird, like, once, we haven't really talked about it, I don't know if it's off topic, but there was a weird competition with Burton, like to try to out, because they, just because of the size and just the way that they did things, they could have the coolest thing ever, but it just, no matter what they did, it still wasn't wearable. You know what I mean? Like,
I remember,
like I always felt like I felt like we were able to, like, I don't know. I was always really proud of like our collection, putting it in, especially because we had, our riders in it. Like, I always felt like we were really thumbing our noses at them. And they were, at the time, I think even at the biggest, they were still always about 10 times the size we were, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
was it 10?
I remember
it was something like that.
It was at least,
Something like that.
I remember I was in the sales role at the time, and it was kind of the same. I moved into that side of things, and so looking at those patterns, I'm like, oh, how is this going to sell? Like, and literally one of our competitors for outerwear was Burton, and we had 2 outerwear brands. And I was like, man, our patterns are super good. I wonder what they're going to come out with. And then I remember seeing a Burton jacket that it was dice camo, just like black and white, like dice. And I'm just like, I'm like, we're good. I'm like, we're good. Like, we're smoking them. I'm like, all those people, and you came out with fucking dice. Like,
oh
Yeah.
God, that's all right.
Yeah.
I just switching gears to like I just wanted to talk a little bit about like the team, the team that was starting to be built there. I know Knox, you had your hands in the pot too with Kevin about building the team, but strategically, what were you guys thinking building that V2? I know I had just come on, but like then we ended up having Andreas and John Jay, and then our movie just kept getting better and better. And I think I have the award right here. What was it? Forever, where we ended up doing video of the year, and John Jay ended up sweeping the podium with rider of the years and whatever. But like, what was strategically like in your mind coming from Vans and coming over to Forum? Like, what was your vision there, Knox, for revamping the new Forum team?
Well, I think, lost Ika, Laurie, and Devin to DC. So there was a, kind of a void there. But like these guys said earlier, Pat Moore, Jake Blavel, Jake Welsh, yourself, I think you guys were all just waiting for that opportunity, and I think it's always, it's always great to pull from within inside if it works. So we really did that. I think it's just, like, I would just say it was more of the focus shifted, and you had an opportunity, and we put John on, which was was key and great and perfect timing for where he was at and what was needed, but really trying to use the team, the athlete side, and then also use from the media side, use the team that did that, so we brought those on, obviously brought in some other people, but really just, I think it's trying to put a media team together and work with athletes, and really no bullshit. Like, this is what we got to do. It is a job, and we're going to be up early in the morning. And as you know, Stevie, I would call you guys and give you shit. And that's just how I operate. It's, we got to do this. But I think it was really putting different pieces of the puzzle in place, and it was all there. It was just like having an opportunity. And I think you guys worked your ass off too, because you had that opportunity. So it was just little refine, retool, and let's do some shit.
Well, I think that the saying on the road we got to a certain point was, a trick a day keeps Knox away. So we knew that if we were going to be out there, you better be getting tricks. Which brings me to my another point of this. The team is like, there was always a standard that Forum always had with resistance and True Life that carried over. And I know like Dan, Rob, and Jared, you guys kind of seen it from the background, but I feel like that same mentality carried over to our team, because it was just like, I'm not saying anything bad about other videos, but if you look at some of the other videos and like watching it with like some of us, we'd be watching other videos and like, if we did that or wouldn't hit that rail, Knox would have fired us last week.
Yeah, a lot of tail touches on nose presses that made it into everyone else's edits. Because I remember people being like, "Oh, dude, this is like 20 stairs." We're like, "Your tail touched. It's not even in the credits." Like, and then even now, seeing videos, and like for better or for worse, but even now seeing videos, I'm just like, dude, half of this stuff would not make it into a movie, And like, I kind of got into it with Evan once. He showed me like an edit that I don't know where people would come back from, but I was like, yeah, Evan, this is super. And for me, like, I'm an armchair quarterback. Like, I'm no ripping snowboarder, but like, I'm a huge fan, obviously, and like been in it a bit. And I remember he showed it to me. He's like, "Oh, what do you think?" I was like, "I think this looks like someone's vacation videos, and you should never show it to anybody." Like, because it was just like not the standard. It was like some pow turns and stuff like that. And so it was probably a little bit harsh, but like honestly, like what we put out there, like I said, like, you know, at the time, especially without social media, like snowboarding was a stage, and we could select what to put on that stage and when to put on that stage, and like what we wanted to show. And, you know, Knox, you know, did an awesome job with taking every single guy and giving them that path and showing them that path. Like, hey, if you want to make this happen, here's what you have to do. And like, you know, that's like a special skill, you know? So, you know, I give a lot of credit to Knox and Keller for like extracting that out of all of those guys, because there's a million amateur snowboarders out there. Like to make one that's like turns into a Pat Moore or a Jake Blauvelt or all these other guys, when those guys all started off like through the Youngblood events and stuff like that. So to be able to extract that is like a very, very special skill. So
Yeah.
I think Forum has always been very, very, very good at that. And like Knox and Keller were killer at that. Like Ruff was good at that. Like, it's just something that I don't really seem, it exists in other brands, but I think, you know, Forum probably did it better than anyone ever has.
I concur.
I have a quick question for Stevie and for Bryan. Like, at least from my perspective, it seemed like from 7 to the generation 2, one of the biggest constants was JP and the precedent that he set from being a professional, the level of presentation and creativity and not doing the same thing that somebody else did and all that kind of stuff. I mean, was that a major part of bringing up this next group and bringing the other guys in? Did they look at the example that JP set and that affected a lot?
You want to go first, Knox? Okay. I would say but I think it was also a trickle down effect, because it wasn't just JP, but it was also like Devin.
Totally.
And you know, and Peter, and then also like people like Kurt Heine and Nathan Yant and Ian Reuter and Matt that had been around JP, the Forum 8, let's just say, that already knew what that precedence was. So for them, it was like it didn't matter what crew you're with or who, whether JP was there or not. Like all the older guys plus the filmers and photographers already knew what time it was and what we needed to do, so they kind of helped pass that along to us. But definitely JP helped a lot being there. But like I think it kind of just spread throughout the crew, because all those guys had been around for so long, they just know how to get it done, and they taught us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everybody kind of knew the expectations.
Learning. Yeah.
I'd say like I got to travel a little bit with the team off and on, and I would say like it's, for the most part, it's pretty unstructured environment, right? Like you're showing up in these places, and there's nothing that's like, there's not like a piece of paper or I mean, you know, you have to make this video, but you know what you do to make that video, it's really kind of on you. And I think without a team manager that like is willing to like, you know, not be everybody's friend, you know, which is probably like, you know, that's, for me anyway, that would be kind of the hardest part of the job, is like, you really, I mean, you have to be the dick that expects, you know, this thing to sort of gel somehow. Because like giving structure to such an unstructured environment is, I mean, like, I don't know. The closest thing I've seen to it is like my kids at school in preschool. I'm like, how do you get all the like this is a nightmare. like how do you have all these kids and you have them like they're all coloring at the same time? Like how do you? So I don't know, preschool or team management. I think they're both vital skills, and kind of not really. You know, they're not ever quantified. You take it for granted.
It helped me having kids. I was just going to say, being, you know, working with athletes, it helped me I have kids now. They're old and out, but it helped me like figure it out before I had kids, because I had all these other kids. Like you said, it was like, you know, no structure, whatever. But I think really like it's really all about the people. Like, Stevie said, we had different filmers and photographers that I knew and trusted. And I said, hey, like, we're here to not fuck around and let's try to get this done. So there was that part of it, but then also keeping it as fun as we could. So it's kind of a balancing act, right? It's like, hey, we want to do this, but let's have fun too. I think, like you said, JP, lead by example. Dude's such a professional. Was so all over the board with product, with filming, with all types of things, and seeing that. And there's others. I think, putting someone like John Jackson on the team from his experience from the backcountry and allowing like Pat and Jake to go with him was a good thing. And, Stevie, having different people go out with you and learn too. As I get older, I wish I did things a little different, truly, but did the best we could for that time. But one thing you touched on, Stevie, is, and all you guys did, is I watched snowboard videos today, like something that just came out, and man, those projects that were done still stand super strong from a creative standpoint, from a riding standpoint, and just it's changed,
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur on that. I think that just really quick, and I feel like everybody from in-house, from Rob and Dan and Jared and Evan and Knox, you and Keller, to all the riders. I just felt Nikki Scoggins, like I felt like we all had like a really good, I don't know if for lack of a better word, like symbolic relationship. Like I knew that I could rely on my outerwear. I knew I could rely on my boots. I knew I could rely on Knox and Keller sending us to the right spots. Well, Keller sometimes, because he did send me to Buffalo, New York, and there's no snow. I just knew that
I know who was responsible for that. It wasn't Keller.
Okay, well, whoever.
It was Mr.
Like,
Mr. Buffalo in the green shirt there.
I don't know if that was me. Maybe.
I just felt like across the board, like we all just like knew what our place was and what we had to do, and we all just got it done. And I think that's what made every one of our projects so fucking special.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in our minds too, whether we were like in the office working on product or we were at a trade show selling to a shop or like at a clinic in the fall, like we had 100% confidence that everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. We're like, selling that stuff confidently, knowing that like Knox is making sure those guys get the shots and they're wearing the right stuff, and Rob's making the stuff so it looks really cool. It's not going to fall apart. Jared's making it look super cool, like graphically, like working with his art, all the artists make it. And so all of us were kind of moving in the same direction. Like Edward, and I don't think that it's his saying, but he always said like a company's a perfect three-legged stool of product, sales, and marketing. And if one leg's too short, the whole thing's going to fall over. And obviously the 4-star years, we had a couple legs that were kind of short and the thing fell over. But
it was a monopod, like
yeah, it was more of a unicycle with like but yeah, I mean, after the Burton acquisition, I think that we were kind of firing on all cylinders there. And like just from like the numbers side, when we were bought, we were just to put numbers on it, maybe like had gone down to like $17 million or something between all three brands. And I think by the time that they shut them down, we were doing like,
I think
no, I don't either. That was like the sale price, but I don't think it was probably under that.
No, that was not true. Cause I remember like if you want to, our first, or maybe it was the second round, like going into the second round, like weren't our pre-sales like 25 million or something like that, which was like, we were like, holy shit, that's like 25 mil. And I remember Burton being like, well, what about your reorders? What? and we're like, wait a minute. What? Well, you gotta come up with another 20% like for your reorders. And we're like, okay, like $5 million, like okay, all right. And I remember like it was attainable though, like those first couple of years, because but I think the boards, just the hard goods numbers. I mean, it was like that last year with 4-star, it couldn't have been more than like $3 million. It was really small, and like if I think Burton would have peaked at the real spreadsheet. The asking price might have. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about
changed.
We
I mean,
we kind of touched on the
statute of limitations.
In a couple
Yeah.
different
Okay. Yeah. Right. It's been a
episodes,
long enough.
but did so
Is there
pretty
one
much
for
like
murder?
this. Uh, does anybody know how much Burton ended up acquiring Forum for? I heard it was like their debt and some snacks is what Travis Wood said, but
the rumor was like the debt and a $1, so it's actual like legal transaction. That's like what the rumor was, and then several a year or so down the road, someone very high up at Burton was basically like, yeah, you guys got pretty close, like to what the actual deal was, because I don't think they ever wanted, not that I don't think that Burton really cared, but I think that the 4-star crew didn't want it really being out there, that's justifiable. But that's kind of what I had heard was like the debt plus like $1, so it's an actual legal transaction. And Evan has a whole story around that about a T-shirt that he made that I'm going to let him tell that story. Yeah. But I'll let him tell that story. But that was
I've
kind of what it was. And so that
I've
debt
thought
was
about
probably
this. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot because it's really hard to tell how that deal went down. I think it's based on just what the vibes, because Burton was really good about not talking about it, but the company was very overvalued at the time of acquisition. Because I mean, Dan, you had to deal with the fact that there were some cooked books, right?
Yeah,
like with pre-orders.
Well, I think that was probably part of it. Like, I think they were kind of selling him the dream a little bit. Like, they were basically like, hey, if this happens, imagine what you're going to have. So it's kind of like, hey, we can sell you this sweet Camaro, but you're going to have to put an engine and everything else in it. But the frame is really good. And so
the bones are
I
there.
think that's kind of, yeah. And I think that what it did seem like there was some sort of, there was a payout, after a certain amount of time if certain things happened. And so that was definitely part of it. And I know, like, we had the spreadsheet with what we owed the riders that I kept. And then I think it was what they told Burton they were owed. And at the time I was still working in the 4-star building here. And someone at Burton's like, well, yeah, here's what all the team riders are owed. I'm like, no, this is the spreadsheet of what the team riders were owed. And the next day I was asked to go work in the analog building from the 4-star building. The acquisition had already gone on. So there were some,
there was a
there.
product version of that too, though.
Yeah.
Cause I remember sitting down with Edward, and there was like the, what 4-star had said was sold to various, people that had committed to these orders, versus what, and so Burton went ahead and made all the stuff, right? And paid for, because I think Burton had to pay for
that year's production.
Making that year's production, and then when it came, then I mean it fell on you to sell it, right? Like you had to sell all this stuff that, because like that first year, I remember Edward not outright saying it, but saying it that the numbers were a little inflated that they had gotten for what they had sold, and I don't know. I don't know by how much.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is in any business. They were buying
100%.
brand and marketing and team and this and that. It wasn't just, I think when all these companies are bought and sold, it's like there's so much more to it. It's a vibe.
Yeah. Having been through it a couple more times,
I felt like
that,
basically they got they got like four dudes and some logos, and then like, okay, you guys figure it out. And a legacy and a tremendous team that like all had, because there was you had to go and get everybody. Wasn't there a time where you had to get everybody's contracts in order?
We had to re-sign everybody. Like we had to re-sign every single team rider under a Burton contract, and then they were owed money from 4-star, so that's like pretty much the worst position that you can negotiate from possible. But they were Burton was very good about taking care of the riders, and then I had to re-sign every single rider that we had. Like JP signed his contract like on my kitchen counter, and I remember thinking like, this is kind of crazy, but I was really stoked to get all that stuff done finally. Yeah, exactly. So, Yeah. So
I just
yeah, we had
I
to
just know
start
that
from
none of those Burton
scratch.
checks ever bounce. That's for sure.
Nope. Nope. No, and they were very, very good. And they even
With
ran
good
their
reason,
marketing
though.
department. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They ran their marketing department. Like, what was her name? Karen Anderson. Was that her
Karen.
name? Yeah. She
No,
was
yeah,
amazing.
Karen.
Yeah. 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 She was incredible. Like, she basically like she's kind of the nuts and bolts of like running the back end of the marketing department there. Like, I remember Edward was like, she gives me Myers expense reports back. Like, her boss, she would decline her own boss's expense reports if they weren't submitted correctly. So that type
Yeah.
of like that type of like discipline is why those Burton checks never bounced.
Yeah, when I, went over to work on the Burton side, I worked with her daily, and she's
Yeah.
so organized and incredible person. She
Yeah.
actually just retired after
Oh, she did?
32 years
Wow.
at Burton this
Nice.
summer. So
Oh, that's cool.
give Karen a shout out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Shout out to Karen. Happy
Yeah.
retirement.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're getting down to the end of this, guys, and I don't want to keep you here forever. I know we kind of touched on the end at the beginning of like, Forum going out of business and Burton shutting it down. But Knox, I think you were the only one that was at the program when Burton shut down. But let's just go round robin here, Jared, because you weren't here in the beginning. But what was your initial thoughts when you heard about Burton shutting down Forum and it going out, and how did it make you feel?
Well, I actually like. Okay, I, maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe about a year before I got fired, um, I had this crazy meeting with. I think it was just Edward. I can't remember if it turned into a Laurent meeting too, but because we had they were kind of trying to figure out how this thing should run, and they hired a guy to be the boss that was and this isn't Chief, this is the guy before Chief, that
And before Sam.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
so that was not, so, but I remember they were always like trying to push these Burton guys on us, like hey, this, like he's great, like he should be your boss, and I was like, probably not like a rando Vermont, I mean, we were just being dumb or whatever. They hired a guy that wasn't working out, like he just was, on paper the perfect general manager, but not. But I remember having this meeting with Edward, because I think we all went in as a group to to I think because we just went across the street and Laurent, right, then we went
It was
didn't we
a
do a like an intervention kind of thing, we're like, hey,
it was
we're
a phone
gone,
call.
you got to get rid of this guy.
We
Was it?
Yeah,
I
we
can't
all
remember
the
how that
three of
went.
us went to lunch and got on a call from 3 different locations with Laurent and Edward.
Oh,
And I
that's
remember
right.
I was
Yeah.
in,
And
so because we wanted it to look like, hey, we're all going to lunch separately. So we all left at separate
we're all
times, and then we all called in
wait for 5
to
minutes and like, okay, now I'm
yeah.
going. That's right.
And
Oh, that's right.
remember we called Laurent, Edward, and the 3 of us. And I remember I was like, well, if I'm having a shady conversation on the phone, I'm going to a parking garage just like the FBI would. Like, so I'm like in this parking garage on a phone call, and we basically had to have the conversation like, hey, we get what's happening here, but like this guy just is not gelling with everybody. And if this guy keeps working here, he's going to be working here by himself within like a month, because everybody's just not going to put up with it. We'd already lost,
it's like he was,
a couple of people as a result, and we were just we had to have that like offsite conversation of like, hey, this just is not working out.
So
and then
okay, so after that happened, there something happened. Well, I think what happened is like Laurent took Edward, because Edward was kind of in charge of us, right?
Mhm.
He must have told him like, you're not like, we're taking this away from you or something. Because I had this like this weird meeting with Edward where he was like, look, I gotta get something off my chest, like, because he was bummed that we went behind his back to like do that, and we didn't do it through him. And he was like, and he was like, I'm really like, I realize like I'm just not a Burton guy, and I'm not gonna, I'm probably, his goal was to move to California and and he really wanted to run our do our business, I think, and
Well, that
they weren't
wasn't
going to do
Edward though.
that.
That was Brian. Wasn't that the call? Was it like the
Uh,
Brian guy, right? Brand.
well, the call, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, Edward, after, in fact, I don't even know if we
Oh, got
talked
it.
to Edward on that call. I think
Yeah.
Edward came back, like, it was one of his visits, and he was like, hey, and he's like, look,
Yeah.
these guys are going to move this to Vermont. The California thing is not working out, and you can't tell anyone I told you this. And it's like, if you want to keep your job, you would be really smart to like move to Vermont now. And he's like we have this guy there that's sort of our creative director, and nobody likes him, and people keep quitting, and they're like you could do that job. Like you, and I'm like, I just got out of Vermont, and I'm not going back. Like I can't do that. And he was like, well, this isn't going to be here for much longer. And he made it sound like it was going to happen, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, instantly or whatever. And I remember like going away from that, I was like, that was weird. And I didn't and I never heard anything else from him. And I don't remember if he was gone or not, but, and then they hired Chief, and then I got fired, and I was kind of like, oh, I guess that they were serious about that whole, like, this, there isn't going to, and then I don't know how much longer it went on. How much longer were you guys there? Another year or two?
I was only
When did
there
you
like
leave?
another less than a year.
I was '06, like fall of
More years.
'06, like around yeah, like November-ish or something. And
So
Yeah.
Dan,
yeah, that I got to
Dan
go
and
on the
I,
premiere and do all that stuff, and I was like, and like we were starting we were already doing the next year's product line, like all the product that was the next, and I was like, this is actually pretty cool, like this job kind of rules. And I was like, man, like I can't believe, I was really stoked. I mean, I did want to do other stuff, but I was like this rules. Like we get to make like the coolest product. The teams, like, finally, instead of this war of attrition, like I can see the teams coming back, and we're adding people to the team, and this is gonna be like just the wrecking ball that it can be. And then I got fired, and I was like, okay, well, no, I'll go on,
Maybe not.
because
But
I kind of felt,
remember,
well, no, I kind of felt like that last year I was sticking around to do the video, and to, like, the product stuff was really cool, but I was like, I don't really want to, I don't need to go to any more of these trade shows or any of that, that kind of stuff, like the video. And I was like, well, maybe I could just get a job doing videos, and cut out the middleman, like let someone young come in and do the snowboard stuff. And I don't know. But I
think the
actually knew
brand
about,
stayed
like,
there
that
for
it was going to
years,
happen
though,
like a
right,
year
Dan?
before.
The brands, the brands stayed there for 3 years or so. Remember, they did that whole expansion upstairs and
Yeah.
all the stuff, and it was
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah, I stayed until like the summer of '08. And the transition was, it kind of, like, the honeymoon phase kind of wore off like fairly quickly. Like we got acquired, and then
It had to.
yeah, it did. But then the kind of what made the brands, there were certain things that started. I mean, even when Jared was there, I think the biggest one was, we had the channel system, and then Burton wanted to do like the single
Ooh, yeah.
channel.
Actually,
And then
that's actually,
Jared and I were sitting.
We developed
Yeah.
that channel system
Yeah.
with the Burton
Yeah.
hard goods. Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and we were at our sales meeting, or no, it was after ISPO in Europe. We had gone over to Innsbruck to snowboard and see some counts and report back on it. And so we were all. I remember having breakfast with Jared, and he had the drawing. He's like, oh, there's two channels, but then we just have one, and then that's it wasn't called a channel or anything. And so that kind of started to get batted around. And then that summer, we were going to have it on basically all of our pro models, and Burton was going to have it on their pro models, and it was going to completely be like, hey, this is the top tier. And Forum and Burton were going to have it. And then Burton had a sales meeting in Mexico. And when they came back from that sales meeting, they're like, hey, you know what? You guys aren't going to have this. You're going to have inserts, and all Burton boards are going to have the single channel. And we were just like, oh, okay, well. And then that happened with a couple of other products. And by the time that happened, and it happened with a binding that we developed, they basically were like, yeah, this is going to be yours. And then they're like, actually, it's going to be a Burton binding. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm out. Like, we're just kind of spinning our tires here. And like, we're basically, it's just not fun being like the farm team at that point. So that was when I was kind of over it. But yeah, that was kind of the big like apex of like, okay, this is turning into something a little bit different now. And it had to at some point, but it just didn't feel good the way that it had happened at the time.
Rob, what was your like exit from, because you were around 2008, some were shortly
Yep.
right around Dan, right? I don't know if you were before or after, but what was kind of what you're,
Well,
when you were
Dan and I,
like,
Dan and I left at the same time. In
Okay.
fact, we would go to lunch a couple times a week, and one day we're driving to lunch, and Dan was kind of a little bit extra quiet. And I go, Dan, like, what's going on? Are you all right? He goes, I'm thinking of leaving. I want to start the first carbon neutral outerwear brand. And I said, oh, that's funny. I've actually been working on a sportswear apparel thing that I want to do. And I had already talked to Chief about doing that on the side, and he kind of gave me the thumbs up. And Dan goes, well, why don't we leave together and we'll do these things? And so when we talk about the end of that sort of whole time, Jared had been gone. Then there was basically Evan, myself, and Dan still left. Then Dan and I left.
Wait, so you guys didn't even get severance or anything?
No. I got a couple legal letters
Idiots.
from Burton.
Sort of.
Idiots.
got a nice check of all the old unused vacation. So at least I got that.
Yeah.
But then Chief and Evan went back to work for Burton. So basically it was a big exodus of talent away from Forum and the other brands that from say the product and marketing side. And then poor Brian and Keller were sitting there like, all right, are we the last guys standing? And they were surrounded by, or they had a guy who did come from Burton to be the general manager.
Mm-hmm.
And which still all really good people, but let's just say some of the heart and soul had left, and it made it tough to continue from there, I would imagine.
This episode is brought to you by BYOB, Be Your Own Banker. Visit BeYourOwnBanker.com.
Also brought to you by PMC, Private Money Club. There are only two types of people in the world: people with money and people who need money. There's only one community that solves both problems. PrivateMoneyClub.com is the only dating site for money.
I want to give a big shout out to Snowbird. Snowbird is your one-stop shop entertainment all year round. Whether it's catching deep powder in the winter or going up with your friends and family during the summer and riding the aerial tram or the roller coaster. And one of my personal favorites during the fall, Oktoberfest. Go to snowbird.com, get your tickets. I'll see you up there.
Yeah. It was different, and then I left and went to Burton.
Yeah.
Like,
And then it was all gone.
Knox, I wanted to ask you this too, kind of here and closing that. So like, I know that, Jared, you were gone in 06, and then Dan and Rob, you guys bounced in 08, but you were around for a while there, Knox, because I remember, I think my last contract was 2012, but I remember you and I having a good conversation. I think, 2000, I want to say 2008, because I think that's when we signed 10, 11. Yeah. I think 2008. I remember we were walking around the block at that I think we were by the Ruka. We were doing outerwear. We were doing, contract negotiations. You and I had a good conversation. And that was my last contract. So you were there all the way to the end. What was it like? Because I know that some people when they ended up closing the doors, you still had to pay like Nick Sauve and some of the other riders. But what was it like, kind of like having to deal with basically just kind of telling everybody, hey, this is the end?
Yeah, I mean, it sucked. I remember, before that, I'd say I think I went and worked for Burton, and I was overseeing Burton and the program, all
Wild.
the team marketing and media. And so I remember when Burton, or me, took John to go to Burton, and Peter was like, "Why the fuck did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, Jake came to me and was like, I love John. He's riding our product anyways. We need someone. Let's bring him over. This brand can't afford John," meaning the program, but Burton can. And so I remember Peter was super bummed about that. But to answer your question, yeah, it sucked, obviously. I think Karen helped make sure everyone was getting paid and all that. And I kind of let Keller and John Spears kind of leaded the program side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just kind of work with them. But it was, for me, it was a good opportunity, and to go from there to Burton and oversee all of that. It was like going from $1 million to 25 million in marketing budget, or over a day, and it was interesting to learn from that side of it, the spending, the budgets, the marketing. So it was a good.
Do you think your budget's still 25 million?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
So it was a cool time. It sucked. Like I said earlier, Jake called me about when the brands were going away, and I gave my opinions that I think Forum should have stuck around, and Analog too. But it was, for me, it's always about trying to do the best I can and be honest with people and make sure that I fought my ass off, I know, to get everyone paid and make sure that was happening, because they're people at the end of the day. So I feel from that perspective, it was okay. But yeah, it sucked to see the team go away. But I think everyone kind of landed on their feet, and it was a good time. But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just remember just all the RIP forums and all that stuff going around. So, and it just sucks. But I mean, just to have to be able to say that, I had a piece of that history was huge for me. And I just want to say this in closing, like Jared, Dan, Rob, Bryan, I thank you guys because you guys had such a big footprint in Forum, Special Ed, and Foursquare, and a big impact on my life and helping me out as a young kid. I know, Knox and Keller, I know Keller says this all the time. I gave him a shitload of gray hairs, but I thank you guys for everything you did, because you guys are all legends in my eyes, like, behind the scenes of the brands that a lot of people probably don't know who you guys are, but they will now. But yeah, man, I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm hyped to be able to work with you guys at, at a certain point in my career. And it was fucking a beautiful thing. We made some magic happen.
That's all. That's really nice to hear. But from my point of view, it's like really cool to see this, getting reformed and reformed. Need to workshop that a little bit, but no, it's really cool. I mean, I'm too old to be kind of in the middle of it all or anything, but it's really cool to see that this weird, like, little brand. I mean, arguably, I remember when, like, seeing the logo for the first time, the three guys that couldn't get along, four guys that couldn't get along, really, all came up with. And, like, thinking that it was just never going to go anywhere. They're like, these guys are going to kill each other. It's not going to happen. And watching it, like, all of a sudden just consume, all of snowboarding and become, I mean, it's still the metric. Like, anybody that remembers, that was involved in snowboarding at that time remembers the Forum 8 and this thing that happened, and then sort of the resurgence. And, I mean, it's always just been a cool brand, and it's cool to see it come to life again. And it's not at the direct hands of an investment banker, right? It's like the people that should be doing it, and I would argue should have been doing it all along,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Actually, last question, just real quick, everybody. How do you feel about seeing how does it make you feel to see foreign background, Jared? Because you just brought this up. How does it make you guys feel to see foreign background that now it's in the hands of Peter? Rob, you go first.
Well, first, I just a quick dive back. Peter is got to be one of the most talented people ever to be involved in snowboarding on so many different levels, creative, discipline, all that kind of stuff. So for anyone to do it, he's the guy. And he's someone who pushed, I know, everybody internally to do as good as they could, because he was so on it with that kind of stuff. So probably in the same way that Jared just said, it's amazing to see it come back. It couldn't have been done with anybody other than Peter, and it's really cool to see. And I really hope that he's getting out of it what he wants to get. That would be important to me, rather than the accolades. What is Pete? Is he happy? Is he gonna, where is it gonna go with him? It's really cool.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, I think it's cool to see it come back. I think, like Rob was saying, I think Pete's really the only person to kind of drive it, and like obviously JP and those guys are both kind of at the forefront of the brand again, which I think is really strong. And I think what I'd really like to see from it is like have those guys bring up kind of what that next level is, because I think that's kind of what Forum was always about, is taking people to that next kind of level of their careers. And I think that those two guys are probably the best people to do that. So I hope it's they want to get everything out of it that they want to get out of it, and then they kind of do what they did the first time with it and kind of change it up a little bit. I think there are a lot of brands that have been relaunched that just kind of relaunch all the old graphics and this and that, and you're going to have a little bit of a flutter of nostalgia, and then that kind of goes away. I think what those guys are doing now is pretty key, and doing something a little bit different, a little bit more boutique, and it's like a unique viewpoint that they have. So I think it's great that it's back, and I wish them all the best with it for sure.
Yeah. Jared, anything else? And then Knox will jump to you.
Well, it's not 1995. Is that when? That's I think when Forum was. It was 95.
Yeah,
maybe
95.
Yeah. It's not that time again. I mean, it's not. It'll never be that time again. But it's and I don't know that anybody's really asking for new snowboard companies out there, really, like they were in the mid 90s. So to do this, it's clearly personal, and it's a labor of love. And I mean, there are a lot of other things. I think Rob, like you said, like there's some really talented folks at the top there that could be doing anything. 'Cause I remember like Peter would come in, like when I first started back at Four Star, Peter would come in every day and work as like a designer or whatever needed to be done. But and I kept like, man, like how long have you been using, Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever he was working in? He'd be like, I'm like, when did you learn to edit video? Like, when did you learn, like if he was, there was never any, like he was, he was sitting with all the other designers and he could do everything they could do, except for, he was, he had more of the, I guess the sort of the creative force and the wherewithal to like just get weird, And in fact, I kind of forgot that he was a snowboarder for a while. I remember we went to Big Bear together, and I remember just like riding down, the cat track and just looking over really quick, and there was some kind of a bump that was probably this high, and I remember his feet being up where my eyes were, and I'm just like, oh yeah, like that's right, you're that guy too. You can. I mean, he just like ollied off of nothing and just somehow was in, like as high as my head on just a flat cat track. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's right. Peter, like I shouldn't try to do what he's doing. I shouldn't follow him off this next jump. That was like a fair warning.
Rad. Knox?
Yeah, it was cool. I saw Peter about a year ago, and he was telling me all about it and why and how. And yeah, like these guys said, there's no one better to do it. He's the guy. He's had that vision from the beginning. Working with him, it's interesting to see how creative he really is. I look at him as almost like a creative director, and whether that's from a design standpoint or figuring marketing out, he has that ability. Understands the space, and I think it's a good point in his career to do that and give it a go. And man, I wish him and everyone the best of luck, and hope they give it hell and succeed.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well,
Definitely.
guys, I appreciate it. I know we're just about. Was that Jared?
No, definitely. Like, yeah, actually, if he weren't doing, if he weren't a snowboarder, like he would definitely be a creative director somewhere. And
Yep.
For sure.
he's built that way.
Right. Well, hey, I just want to say, I'm so grateful for you guys' time, Jared, Dan, Rob, Knox. Like, I appreciate you guys jumping on. This has been so rad. It's rad to see you guys' face. It's been a long time, and
Yeah.
it's cool to just, like to get together. And I was really excited this morning. I popped up. I'm like, sick. Like, dude, this is like, it's almost like being in the program office back in 2006. So I want to say thank you guys, man. This has been awesome, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you. I can't thank you
Thank
enough.
you.
That's it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I
nice
appreciate it.
nice
Thanks
to
for
think
putting
about
this all
stuff. I
together.
haven't thought about it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do like some type of reunion where we get everybody together sometime.
I
Maybe it's
know.
online, or maybe we go cause hell at some restaurant in Southern California. But yeah, man, I'm good to see everybody, and I'm glad everybody's doing well. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks for joining the Switchboard Podcast, episode 8. Stay tuned. We've got more special guests for episode 9.